Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good evening. Welcome to the Little Boy Inside panel discussion brought to you by Men Hurt Too and Breakfast with Our Boys, a much needed conversation on the impact of childhood trauma on a Black male in America. So we have our panel here. I'm going to ask them to please unmute themselves as we get started. If you are on Facebook, please share. We want this message to go out to as many people as possible so that we can begin the healing process of our Black men that is so necessary. This is going to be very eye-opening, very transparent. So I am Trey Kearney. I'm the creator of the podcast Men Hurt Too. I am a big advocate for healing of the Black man. I have 3 sons who got caught in the crossfire of me committing adultery. And I saw the pain that it caused, and I realized men hurt too. And if I didn't correct or acknowledge my behavior, my broken boys will become broken men forever. I want to apologize to every man on this panel and every man who is listening who needs an apology from a mother, a lover, an auntie, or a female friend for disregarding and disrespecting your feelings and acknowledging the fact that men are human beings first and men hurt too. I love you all. I'm going to pass the mic to Mr. Toby, my co-host, and thank you so much for bringing this thing together and acknowledging that we need this in our community so bad.
Gentlemen, I'm so happy you came. Thank you so much. I know, Josh, we've never spoken, but I reached out to you because I could tell you're a dynamic man. And Mac, with that hat on, brother, you came highly recommended. So today we're going to have a brief conversation and talk about some things from your childhood or things you experienced with and how it affected you now as an adult. That includes relationships. That includes things dealing when it comes to raising kids. So we're going to be pretty open and honest, go as deep and as far as you want to. But the bottom line is we're doing this so other people can learn, both men and women, because we know that men hurt too.
So Mr. Toby, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, first of all, really quickly, I am the creator of the Breakfast with Our Boys series. It's about 1.5 years old, where we take 12 young men out to breakfast for an 1.5 hour conversation. We bring in guest speakers, and we talk about important things like dining etiquette, professional presentation, and finances, just to name a few. I'm also the creator of the Magnificent Men Mentoring Group, which works with middle school and adult children. It is such an honor and pleasure to be here, and I am extremely excited to hear from all you gentlemen. Thank you for coming.
So we're going to start with a brief intro of each man. So I would like to start with Andre. Please tell us your name, where you're from, and what you do.
So my name is Andre Turnbull. I am, I currently reside in Brooklyn, New York, by way of the Bronx, by way of the island of Jamaica. Now, I consider myself a multi-dimensional entrepreneur. I am also a corporate training development specialist. I also am a certified life coach. I also serve as the host for the Brothers of Briefcases panel discussions. And I'm also a founding member of the Mastermind Connect platform, or organization rather, which is a men's collective for today's modern men. So yeah, that's about me.
Thank you so much. Antoine, would you like to go next?
Yes, my name is Antoine Nelson, born and raised in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Rutgers graduate. I'm a mentor. That's a father first. Second, I'm a mentor. Third, I'm a hustler. I'm an entrepreneur as well. Mentor. I do a lot of work with the youth, and I do a lot of work or reentry work.
Thank you so much. So Mark, we're going to pass you the mic. Unmute yourself, please.
Excellent. I am Mark Thompson. I'm from the Bronx. I'm a father as well as a husband. I'm the president of Dare to Dream Photography. I'm also the director of business development. And I love mentoring students and helping uplift my community.
Thank you so much. Mac, we're going to put you on the mic next.
Hello. My name is Max Stanley Kazor. I am a clinically licensed Black male therapist with a specialization in couples therapy. I am the owner of Therapy is for Everyone, which is a private practice and a movement aimed at destigmatizing the therapeutic approach in the Black community. And I'm looking forward to this conversation.
All right, Josh.
Thank y'all so much. Matt, good to see you, good brother. Good to see you again. My name is Josh Odom. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm the founder and curator of Healing While Black LLC, which is an online platform dedicated to the mental health and wellness of Black, queer, trans, and non-conforming people. I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion professional, and I am also a certified life coach as well.
Thank you so much. We got a room full of powerhouse men. First, I want to say that Black men are dope. I love you guys, and I appreciate you coming here because this is going to be a very, very transparent conversation, and that takes a lot of bravery to come on here and share your stories. So first, let's talk about your blueprint, and I'm going to go back around the room, and we can start with Andre again. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with your mother and a little bit about your relationship with your father.
So my mother passed away 7 years ago. And I had a very close relationship with my mom. I was her only son, and so that came with a lot of pressure, right? Being the only boy. In terms of my father, well, we never really had a close relationship. My biological father. However, we never had really a strained relationship. We just never had a relationship. So I grew up with my stepfather, and we did have a relationship until things kind of went south and things went left and things, everything else but right. And so that became a strained relationship, and that in itself became traumatic. But that's about it. You know, but my relationship.
Go ahead.
Say it again.
No, go ahead.
No, but yeah, in terms of my relationship with my mother, very, very close, very close. We shared a lot. I shared a lot with her. I was able to talk to her, and so her absence now in this earth realm has left a really big void. It has left an incredible void that will never ever be filled. But you know, I'm healing through that, and I'm going through the process of still mourning and grieving her the right way. So.
I want the audience to hear that men hurt too. This is what we're saying, because we have a lot of compassion for women when they lose their parents or when they lose a loved one, but we don't give that same grace and mercy kind of sort of to men, like, you know, get over it. So what, your mom passed away, not saying it like that, but I just want people to understand that you miss your mother and it's impacting you as an adult because of your relationship as a child. So we're going to go on to Antoine. Please tell us a little about your blueprint, your relationship with your mother and your father.
So my relationship with my mother always been cool. My mother has been always been a strong mom. For a lot of my life, she was a single mom. She always held it down, always made a way. She worked a lot. Because she was a single mom and because she was the one bringing in the income, she worked a lot. And we, like, as we got a little older, you know, we figured her schedule out. And, you know, when she was working nights, we was out. Like, as far as my relationship with my father, my relationship with my father is a little different, because I say from like age 8, from birth to about 11 years old, he was probably my superhero. And then I'm 42 now. So from like 11 to like 30, I despised him, right? And then from 30 to now, it was like a shaky period, like trying to make it right, or can we make it right? What we gonna do? And I'm at the point where, like now, I'm finally at the point where I'm finally trying to make peace with the whole situation.
Okay, we're going to get into that a little bit more as we go down the line to find out a little bit about what that situation is. Mark, can you give us a little bit about your blueprint? It's so important that people know your blueprint and your background, because it helps us as women and as society understand some of the behaviors that men have. And we think that you guys are just cruel and go around hurting people and hurting women. And there's a story behind every action that a man has. So please share, Mark.
Okay, terrific. I was raised in a single parent household. My mom had 6 kids and she raised 2 of my cousins. And, you know, we lived in the housing project, Soundview, and my dad was incarcerated. my relationship with my mom was good, but the challenge was my mom had a boyfriend who was abusive. So that's where a lot of issues, were created for myself. And, a lot of times you want your mom to separate and leave that person alone. And mom was madly in love. So we had issues. So I would live with other family members, and I just couldn't understand at like 14 and 15 why she would go back to this particular person. And sometimes, mom, because of the struggles trying to raise 6 kids, she could be sometimes verbally abusive. And, over time that turned into like depression on my particular part. But now, as an adult, I've forgiven my mom for a lot of things that happened after, getting professional help for myself, because I can make connections a little better. So now my relationship with my mom is wonderful. But as a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, it was hard.
Amazing. Amazing. I love this because a 14 or 15-year-old, from a mom's perspective of 3 boys, only wants to protect his mom. So it's hard when you can't. Mac,
yes.
Give us a little blueprint.
So the therapist in me just want to come across the screen and just hug all of my guys, because my empathy is just with you, and I get it and I understand it. Back to my blueprint, I was born and raised in Haiti. I was raised in a 2-parent household. I would say that at first I didn't have an emotional relationship with my parents because they just didn't know better, because that's what they were used to. But once I got into the field and started understanding psychology better, it allowed me to better understand their environment, as well as to why they behave in the manner that they did. Currently, for the past 10 years, I've had a beautiful relationship with my mom. She refers to me as her first husband. I was her husband. Like, I love that lady like no tomorrow. With my father, he's the least emotional, the least verbal person ever, but I've never had to pay a bill or had to pay rent. Like, he always took care. He always found ways to show his love. And now that I have a 10-month-old daughter, they are best friends. Like, him and her is like the most amazing thing. So throughout the years, I was able to repair and enhance my relationship with my parents.
Amazing. I love this because I'm going to ask you something about being a provider from seeing a provider.
Mm-hmm.
Josh, please tell us a little bit about your blueprint.
Absolutely. So thankfully, I would have a great relationship with both my parents. My dad is the type of person who is very charismatic, very outgoing, wanting to pour into his kids. So doing all the things such as coaching, Little League, wanting to be present. Of course, having to balance that, having to work, do his thing. I have a brother and a sister. So, when he could, he definitely did make the time and the intention to be an active present in his kids' lives. And he was always there to provide that kind of emotional support, even if it didn't look like it in the moment. My dad was the type of dad who was more so of like, he was the one who said he wasn't a disciplinarian in a sense, but it was one of those things where it's like, we have those kind of relationships in which if he said, "I'm disappointed in you," it broke your heart. And it was one of those kind of situations where you respect your father, you don't want to disappoint him in that kind of a way. And then my mom is my OG. Me and my mom's best friends. We consistently talk about everything under the sun. We exchange ideas. We converse pretty much daily. I talk to my mom every day. And her and I were really, really, really close. She just wanted me to be someone who is versatile, who wanted to move through different spaces and hold his own and be okay, and wanting to not necessarily be pigeonholed or stereotyped as what a large Black man with a beard quote unquote should be doing.
Wow, amazing. I love all you guys' mothers. So we're going to get to our next question, and then me and Toby, Mr. Toby, will bounce off each other with questions. So I'm going to start with Antoine. We've all suffered some trauma. What's the one thing that has never left you from your childhood?
As far as trauma,
Trauma's concerned, yes.
one thing that has never left me.
Yes, that one thing that's always in your head.
I have one thing that's like is in the back of my head. Well, as a kid, I wore it as a badge, right? So when I was like 8 or 9, well, I was like 8, and my brother was 9, I had a family member that used to make us have sex with her. So being 8 or 9 years old, I could tell people that I had sex already. Like, I'm not a virgin at 8 or 9. Like, so all through my childhood and all through teenage years, that was a badge, like saying I had sex before you. Like, I've been doing this. But going into adulthood and then having my kids of my own and realizing how fragile a 8-year-old is at that age, it was wrong.
Wow. I have that actually on my notes because I don't know. I sometimes I think that these things are just going to pop up because we have this whole Me Too movement for women. And when the whole R. Kelly thing went down, you know, R. Kelly's sister was molesting him and having sex with him when he was a young man. And he felt like it was a badge of honor. And he didn't get the help that he needed. So I want people to understand that a young man's innocence gets taken away as well as young girls. And we have to be aware that you had sex at 8 years old. Like, we need to know these things, that these things are happening. So when we are dealing with you as an adult, as a husband, as a brother, as a father, then we know how to navigate through these things for you and with you, to have some understanding and some empathy for your life. Mark, we've all suffered some trauma. So I want to pass that question off to you. And sometimes trauma is not sexual abuse. Sometimes trauma is you speaking about your mother's boyfriend. So talk about that trauma that does not leave you.
One thing in particular that jumps out at me is I think I was 15 and my mom's boyfriend, you know, put his hands on my mom. And, you know, I watched that since I was like 12 to like 15. And then, you know, I started getting muscles. So
right.
we had like a physical confrontation. And I told him, hey, you never hit my mom again. And I beat him up. You know, I hate to say it that way. But I said, you know, and as a young kid, you think it's over. But I was traumatized because after the physical confrontation with him, my mom got back together with him. So I was under the impression as a 15-year-old that it was going to be over. We could leave now. But because of, you know, her dysfunction at that particular point in her life, she went back to him. So I had to do something to get away from that before I put myself in harm's way. So I moved away from my mom at that particular time because it was the best thing for me to do at that point in my life. And that experience right there caused me to have some depression because, you know, I was like, man, my mom, she's supposed to love me more than she loves him. So that over time created like depression within me. And what I learned from that particular experience, we start self-medicating when we have this heaviness on our heart. Some people use drugs, some people drink. For me, it was sex. I had this insatiable appetite to want to have sex. And, you know, as time progressed and I was able to make connections from going to professional counseling for like 15 months as a freshman in college, that's when the counselor helped me make connections as to where that heaviness came from that I was carrying. All of those particular years, I was like, man, where's this heaviness coming from? It was like a heavy load on myself. Then my counselor helped me make the connections. And that's when I was healed.
Thank you so much for being so transparent. Women and men who are listening, especially for the women, I just want to point out some particular things that I want the women to get while they're listening to you guys. There are a lot of men out here who we call womanizers. And Mark just made a very relevant point. They are self-medicating through women, trying to get the love. He felt like his mother loved him less because of a man. So We all go through these traumas and we're looking for love in all the wrong places. Let me find a woman who would love me more than my mother loved some man. So that's just an amazing, transparent moment, because I've dealt with womanizers. And as I got into what I've been doing and helping men heal and writing my book, I realized that there are womanizers because boys have been disregarded in school in the 8th grade. Nobody wanted them. They wanted the football player, and you felt minimized. So when you got the muscles and you go to the gym, you're like, I'm a bone, excuse me, every woman I could. Now that I'm looking good, oh, now y'all want me. So I'm gonna pass the mic to Mr. Toby because we have some very deep questions to ask.
And gentlemen, thank you so much for being so transparent, because it's not only great for our audience, but it also helps to heal me that I'm not alone and deal with some of these similar stories. So I'm going to start with you, Mark, and I'm going to go back to me growing up as a young man and talk about colorism, which is an ill in this country, because as the country becomes less Caucasian, that's one ill. But now we find often that within our own races, Caribbean, Hispanic, Afro-American, or whatever, complexion is an issue. I remember as a young man when I was 15, my very first girlfriend was from Jamaica, very fair complexion, green eyes. I could never come in her house because her mother said I was too dark. That was my first time dealing with colorism, because in my lifetime, my mother was always very fair and open. My question to you, Mark, is within our own race, amongst our own people, has there been a situation where complexion and color affected you or someone in your family, and how it left and lasted an impression, sir?
I would definitely say yes. Like in certain cases where a family member was probably a little darker than myself, I'm more fairer skinned. Sometimes it was privileges that I received that they didn't receive because they were a little darker. So you could tell, like, you know, and if you looked a certain way, you got extra preferential treatment, privileges. You were acknowledged more. You were recognized because if you could speak a little better than that person who was a little darker than you. So you're definitely right on target.
I want to turn to Mac for a moment. Mac, you're a professional in the industry when it comes to trauma and these type of issues, but you're also a man and an individual. Has there been a chance or a time in your life where you went through a similar situation, whether it's you or immediate family member, and it has stayed with you over all these years?
Oh, man, I got stories for days. Being a black male therapist just that tagline alone has opened my eyes to all of the microaggressions that I've experienced in this field. I remember my first day at my internship. I walked in and I identified myself and was told by a Caucasian lady, "Wow, you dress nice for a black guy." Needless to say, that was my last day. Walked out right then and there.
Wow. And it's amazing because, you know, you have the exterior racism, and then you have how we feel about each other, which also is very painful. So we're getting hit from both sides of it. You know what I'm saying, Matt? Josh, let me ask you a question. You know, my brother had his first child who's now 26. And I'll never forget my granduncle who's in his 80s. When she was born, he looked at us and said, "Wow, she's so cute and a nice color too." Now, I never thought about that till 40 or 30 years later, a nice color too. What is a nice color? And if she'd been a different complexion, would you love her any less? So Josh, in your personal life, as well as your professional life, have you had to deal with people when it comes to inner hate because of their complexion to any degree?
So just understanding that, first of all, yes, and just to not to derail the conversation, but I just wanted to uplift Antoine really quickly for thank you so much for sharing, brother. Like, that was not something that you had to share, and I just appreciate you for sharing. I didn't want to let the moment pass without saying that, so I appreciate you. I'm sorry that happened to you, good brother. And also just to make the point that, you know, when we're talking about children, right? If children can't consent to sex, they're not having sex. They're not having sex, they're being raped. And I think that's something that's really important to name in very explicit language as we move forward with the conversation. But I just wanted to say that I didn't want to let that moment go. So
thank you so much, Josh. We appreciate that.
Yes.
But thank y'all. Thank you so much. And also to Trey's point, you know, we do have to have a conversation about all survivors of sexual violence, because Black folks, like everybody else, are recipients and survivors of sexual violence, and Black men have all experienced too. And that masculinity, that level of shame that is attached to that, it prevents us from getting the help that we need. It also makes space unsafe for folks to disclose what happened to them because of these tenets of masculinity that say you were supposed to enjoy those things when, like Antoine was saying, yo, I was a kid. I didn't know what was happening in certain cases. But thank you, good brother. I really wanted to say that. But back to Randall's question, absolutely. I have been labeled as an eloquent. You're very eloquent for a man your size and your complexion. You know, you're very well spoken, put together, all those different things. And it's one thing to say that. It's one thing to hear that from a white person, because I expect this from white people. I expect that kind of vitriolic anti-Blackness from white people. And we also have to combat the fact that we all have a level of internalized anti-Blackness within us that we have to continue to interrogate and to purge out of us, because these are all products of white supremacy, right? If we are sitting under, and not even sitting, living, moving, trying to live, trying to heal under a white supremacist state, then it is not something, it's not so far-fetched to think that we have to have certain levels of an aversion to darkness, an aversion to dark-skinned people, an aversion to bigger dark-skinned people that we also have to interrogate and extract out of us in our personal lives, in our professional lives, in our choices of who we choose to be with and who we choose to partner with and have children. All of these decisions are political in some way, shape, or form.
Wow.
Well, Andre, I mean, before I go into Andre, I just want to ask you one more question, Josh, because you brought up the sexuality about Antoine. When I was facilitating a workshop in Harlem as a training manager in a room of 50 people, I'll never forget one man had said to the whole room that when he was a child, he was a big guy, about 6'2" and very muscular, that he was raped by another man. And I was relieved that a man felt good enough and strong enough to bring this up, because you know the things that come along with that, what people say. So before I go on to move on to Mr. Turnbull, let me ask you, what is a man to do when he's physically abused by another man or woman? How would he handle that? What would you recommend?
Well, I mean, that's a big question, first and foremost. So I would, again, ask the person, again, just putting forth all resources to help the person, regardless of gender, who disclosed that, right? So the fact that this person felt comfortable enough or felt was brave enough to disclose that, with the level of let's just call it what it is. There's a violence that is attached to that if you choose to disclose that you are a survivor of sexual violence. Like, there is a shame that is attached to that. Spaces can become unsafe for you. There can be a lot of material consequences if you choose to divulge that information. So I think the first thing for me, and this is speaking from my own personal experience, is that I am not ever going to make a person feel compelled to share what happens to them. If they choose to share that with me, that is a gift that they are sharing, and I am, again, make sure that I feel responsible and being responsible to make that space safe enough for that person to not only disclose, but if they are disclosing, wanting to marshal resources to get folks the support that they need if they want and choose to take advantage of those resources. But in regards to what this person should do, I think we're asking a different question. I think, what do we need to do to not only stop sexual violence, but what do we need to do as advocates, as accomplices to people who have survived sexual violence? What are we doing to make spaces safe for folks to disclose? How are we calling out folks who are perpetrators of sexual violence and accomplices and apologists, right? That's the question that I feel is pertinent. Like, what are we doing as those who stand in solidarity, or say we stand in solidarity with survivors of sexual violence, to make the space safe for them if they do decide to disclose? And how do we make sure that they are not persecuted or indicted in the court of public opinion by their colleagues or whomever if they decide to disclose. So the onus is really on us, it's not on them.
Thank you so much, Josh. That was well said. Yes, Stanley, go please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Josh said. I felt that he answered this beautifully. I would just say, because I also wanted to chime in on Antoine's experience, but I feel like the conversation shifted. So Josh, thank you for bringing that back. In regards to Randall's question, I would just say, like, the first thing is using the right language. Antoine described it as having sex, but in reality, he was raped, right? So there is a lot of power in the semantics that we use, and we need to start properly label exactly what that experience is. And also, us as men and us as Black men, we need to hold each other accountable to ensure that when one of our brothers share something of that magnitude, it is no time for jokes. It is no time for poking at him or trying to say, oh man, you got lucky, or etc. It's time to step up and say, yo, bro, what do you need? Do you need a therapist? Do you need me to go with you to the cops, or whatever the case may be, and be present and be intentional with our assistance.
Yeah. Gentlemen, this is so powerful. We appreciate that. Andre, I'm going to swing over to you, sir. Yes. You know, I was fortunate enough to be a panelist maybe a year and a half ago, and you were the moderator. And the thing about colorism came up. So tell the audience and share with your panelists the conversation we had about complexion and how it affected you and how you grew out of that and was able to deal with it as a man of color. So growing up, I grew up part of my life in Jamaica, and went to high school there. And I'm going to tread very lightly with this because, you know, I know a lot of people are going to be watching, right, that are also from Jamaica. But growing up, what I saw, there wasn't really a lot of, comparing it to where we are now in terms of like dark skin and being dark skinned, it was not very there's not a lot of celebration around that, right? Because a lot of people in Jamaica, you know, were bleaching their skin because they wanted to be fairer, right? And I was one of those people who was teased for my dark skin. And even when I came to this country as a young kid, I was also teased, you know, because of the complexion of my skin. And it made me feel less than. It also made me feel very insecure amongst other traumatic events, right, that happened. But that made me feel very insecure. I would shy away from staying in the sun too long in the summertime. I would shy away from taking pictures because I thought I was just going to be too dark, right? And so as time went on, I started to love myself a little bit more, you know, to kind of like love on myself a little bit more, kind of accept myself for who I am in terms of like my dark skin. And, you know, thankfully I grew out of that because now I'm at the place I'm like, man, I love all this right here. That's right. Right. I am almost 34 years into this blackness, into this black skin. It ain't going nowhere. Right. It is what it is. And I'm loving all of it. So it took me a while though. I'm not going to lie to you. It took me a while because it affected my self-esteem a lot. It really did growing up. So thankfully, like I said, I'm now way past that. And there's no turning back at this point. So, you know, it is what it is. Yeah. And thank you for being so transparent, because that's not very easy, because a lot of times we hide these feelings because we're ashamed or people are teased. You know, fortunately or unfortunately, it never disturbed me. It made me go, okay, I just got to do it a little bit easy, you know, a little hard work. I have to work a little harder to prove to you who I am as an individual. But thank you. That's not an easy thing to talk about, and you did it very well. Antoine, the influencer, tell us a little bit about your experience, if you've had one. You just have to unmute yourself.
I didn't catch the question. It froze. You froze on me.
No, not a problem. Have you had a personal experience yourself where you had to deal with something similar like the other men as well in your day-to-day life growing up? And did it have a lasting effect to any degree?
Yeah, so I can't relate because the area that I grew up in, I feel like we all were treated the same. Like or like I grew up in an area where it was primarily African Americans. It wasn't too many. You didn't see too many mixed kids. It may have been a sprinkle of Puerto Ricans, but other than that, I feel like we all got treated the same. It wasn't until I was older as a young adult that I moved to South Jersey that I was even around people who weren't it was like a culture shock, me seeing so many mixed people and Caucasian people. Cause I was really never, the only Caucasian people that I had ever been around was police officers, judges, politicians, teachers. That's it. Like I was never really around Caucasian people until I was an adult.
Let me ask you a question that's very interesting. So would you say the people you were around were kind of people in charge or in control that seemed to hold higher offices? Did that have an effect on you? So you kind of related to that person as, well, I better listen to them because they're a person of authority. Would you say that?
Without a doubt. I didn't see, coming up, I didn't see a Black male teacher not in my elementary school, might have had like gym teachers in high school that were Black or coaches that were Black, sprinkled here and there, but it's Black female teachers. But the Caucasians that I came across were all in authoritative positions.
And that does have an effect from a trauma perspective. I'm sure Mac or Josh could say to a certain degree from their professional side that if this is what you see, you start to think a certain way, you know? Trey?
Yes. So Mark, I want to talk to all the guys about this because I'm a mother of 3 sons, and mothers have such an effect on sons. And I don't think that we really understand the effect that we have on our children. So I want to talk about the importance of mother-son relationships, because I hear a lot from women that they can't get to the vulnerable side of a man. And I know that for years, as soon as the doctors told me my sons, it's a boy, it was be a man, be a boy, don't cry, get up, so what you fell, handle that. How important first is a relationship with a mother? And what does it do to you when you don't feel protected by your mother?
I would say a relationship with the son-mother relationship is vitally important because you get the opportunity to really communicate. And when you think of like a mother, that's your opportunity to share your sensitive side. Because like I was telling you, my dad didn't live with us. So many of the people in my family who I really looked to for leadership, communicated with, was taken different places to, were women. My aunts, a lot of women in my family, aunts, grandmothers, all women. So that relationship with your mom is vitally important because it helps you in your relationship in the future with your wife. It also helps you with your relationship with your children, especially if you have girls. I have 2 daughters. So you got to make sure you have some type of like healthiness in the relationship with your mom, because if not, it can create chaos in your marriage if your relationship with your mother is not good, you know, and then how can you possibly have a healthy relationship with your daughters if all you've ever seen was an unhealthy relationship with your mother? But, you know, communicating with people within my church, and I've learned, and this has helped me tremendously, forgiveness is for you. So holding on to the unforgiveness for so many different years, when it comes to my mom, I've learned how to forgive my mom. And in the midst of forgiving my mom for some of the trauma that I experienced, that's when the healing process within myself took place. And to see my mom happy that she could communicate with me, that she could go someplace with me and be happy. And, you know, we could love each other and communicate more. And that's what actually happened to me. Now my relationship with my mom is wonderful because of those particular things. But it's important.
I love that. And you said something too, that your dad wasn't in your life, but you were raised by a lot of women.
Yes.
What effect did that have on you of not having that relationship with your biological father?
I would definitely say that I'm a sensitive soul, right? So I'll be honest with you. I'm a sensitive soul. I'm humble. It has made me a better listener. When it comes to like women, it has made me respect women so much more. Where people would disrespect women or, you know, not treat them like they're supposed to be treated with respect. And like I told you guys, I went to professional counseling as a freshman for 15 months, and that was the best thing that I could have ever done. Because I think when you have trauma that you go through, and you don't get professional help to try to deal with it, you're going to keep that dysfunction is going to continue on in your relationships, you know, with your girlfriends, your relationship with your wife. You're not going to have healthy relationships with women because you don't value the most important women in your life, which should be your mother. So just going through that counseling process and like I said to you guys, making connections. Your consciousness opens up and you start going, oh, I understand why I was doing that, why I did this. And that's where the healing takes place. That's when you can have a healthy relationship with your wife as well as your kids. And the key ingredient that I share with you guys, the forgiveness component. A lot of times we carry around so much unforgiveness within our hearts. It makes it impossible to have a healthy relationship with, you know, the women you're supposed to love.
Thank you so much for being so transparent. I want to go to Andre.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned your stepfather, and you said that after a while, the relationship got kind of rocky. So being that your father was not in your life and your stepfather was in your life, what kind of turmoil did that cause for you? Having a good relationship with your stepfather, which turned sour, but your father not being in your life. So talk about those two dynamics of my father's not in my life. So what did that do? But my stepfather came along and now something happened there.
So I think I mentioned before, I never had I'll say a strained relationship with my biological father because we just never had one to begin with, right? So I can't really say if it was strained or not, because he was just not present. But my stepfather.
But let me ask you that. Let me stop you right there for 1 second. What did him not being present? It doesn't have to be strained. What effect did that have on you? Strained, he just was not present.
Yeah, he was just not present. So I think, and being so young, I didn't really give it a lot of thought, right? And I didn't realize how much it affected me until I got older. Right. And I got into therapy and I started to unearth a lot of things. Right. Yes. But so it's kind of like difficult to say how it affected me then because I wasn't aware. Right. That's a key thing, awareness. But in terms of like my stepfather, we had a great relationship when he first, started, when he was first married to my mom, and they were married for years, almost 20 years. They were married for a very long time. And so he was the only father I knew. And so we had a great relationship until things went sour. He started to do his own thing in terms of, having multiple women, and the abuse started, and seeing my mom go through that. And that developed within me a lot of resentment, anger, to the point where I hated him at one point. I carried around bitter hatred in my heart for him to the point where I wanted to not see him alive anymore. It was that deep because it hurt me to see my mom go through so much and to see her endure that. And I also was angry at her, with her too, in a sense, because I'm like, why would you sit and deal with this, right? Why would you sit here and allow this to happen, right? So there was also some resentment towards her because I'm like, I'm seeing this, my little sister's seeing this, and we're seeing what's happening. So when is this going to end? Right. And eventually she decided, this was it. And they ended up, getting a divorce. And then, that was that. But it left a lot of things in me in terms of like anger And but it also made me realize the type of relationship I did not want to have, right? But because but I still brought a lot of things into my marriage, and now to just be transparent, going through a divorce, right, after being married for so long, right? I brought a lot of that stuff in unaware, right? Unaware that I was actually bringing that stuff into the marriage, and that caused a lot of other things to go south. So
one more question to go with that. I just want to ask you one more thing about that.
Mm-hmm.
Were you angry at your stepfather because you loved him and then he showed you this side?
Yes, because I felt betrayed and I felt deceived because that wasn't the person I knew when I was younger. So I felt like this was another side and another person that I was being introduced to, and I'm like, where was this guy, right? And so it caused a lot of resentment, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, because this was someone I loved. This was somebody I respected. And to see this was my guy, you know what I'm saying? Like this is my dad. And this was way before even my little sister was born, because he's my little sister's father. So it was always me and him, you know what I mean? So to go from seeing someone I respected and loved so much turn into this monster, it's like somebody I don't even know. It was traumatic. It was really traumatic. And it left a lot of anger there.
I just wanted to get that point across, because a lot of times, and I want parents to hear this who are listening right now, when you're dating somebody, your children are dating somebody.
Yes.
When you're forming a relationship with somebody, your children are forming a relationship with them. Mm-hmm. When you break up with that person, your children have to break up. And we don't give our children the tools and stuff to be able to get through that breakup. Like, we cry as women and we go through it, we get therapy and we talk to somebody, but we don't give that grace to our children. Mom, you got a divorce from somebody who you brought into my life, that was my dad that I loved, and now I'm supposed to detach from this, and you're not giving me tools or support to help me heal. I wanted to go to Antoine and talk about your circumstance where this happened to you, and your mother was working. Did you feel, because we're talking about mother-son relationships right now, and I just want people to understand how important this is. Did you feel that your mom didn't protect you, or that she was oblivious to what was going on around you? And for this to have happened on her watch, how did that make you feel? Or did it affect you anyway towards your mom? You have to unmute.
Yeah, I don't believe, I don't put my mother, it doesn't correlate to me, the two things, because my mother, I always felt protected with my mother. Anytime we were in situations that were getting toxic or a little too toxic, she got us out of that situation. So, and in all honesty, she'll probably hear about this now today. She actually, I've never told her about this.
Oh.
So I'll probably be having a conversation tonight or tomorrow about this, because she doesn't know that this happened.
Oh, are you ready for that conversation?
I'm gonna have to be.
I know. I mean, this is real talk. Like, this is really.
No, this is honestly.
Do you need to have that conversation?
No, honestly, I've brought this out within the last year. I've never said this to nobody. Only me and my brother knew, and we always laughed and joked about it throughout the years. But I've brought it out to people recently.
Right.
So yeah, for it to come out.
So there's this
do
thing.
Anything wrong? So I'm not in trouble.
Right. That's the thing about it that I want you and other men to understand that.
Yeah.
And I want people to understand, we always talk about, make sure you watch who you have around your daughters. Make sure you watch who you have around your daughters. Make sure you watch who you have around your sons. Our sons are always left unprotected because they're males. There are a lot of women predators out here who have been molested, and it has carried over into them. So when they babysit, when they're teachers, when they gain these young boys' trust, they take advantage of it. So I just want the women who are listening to understand, don't just protect your daughters, protect your young sons too, because of course society tells our boys that that's okay. Innocence lost, men have sex, And whatever age it is, you get a badge, like you said. But we need to understand that this is traumatizing our sons when they become men and they realize that they've been violated. Andre, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah. So I'm about to like share a lot right now.
It's okay.
And I'm doing it off of the strength of what Antoine just shared.
That's why I share.
Yes.
That's why I share.
Yeah.
Yes. So you mentioned something a while ago about telling your mom, and first of all, I want to commend you for even sharing that, because I think that was brave. And so this is compelling me now to share. And there's a reason why, many reasons why I'm sharing, but one in particular is you now have the opportunity to share that with your mom. And as much as it's going to be an uncomfortable situation, an uncomfortable conversation, it's great that you have your mom here with you that you can actually share that with, because I did not get that chance.
Wow.
Because a similar thing happened to me at 14, right? I was raped at 14, right?
Wow.
And I'm just going to preface this because I know I shared this video on my Facebook, and a lot of people don't know this, right? But I went to high school in Jamaica. And if you understand Jamaican culture and what happens within that in terms of sexuality and it's a lot of that is rooted in homophobia. There's a lot of that there. And I say that without apology because there is a lot of that there. And so I went to high school there. So close to my high school, and I'm gonna try to wrap this up quickly. Close to the high school I went to, there was housing that kids who didn't want to commute or the parents didn't want them to commute, they could board. It's like boarding. So for argument's sake, boarding school, right? And so there, on a Friday night at 14 years old, I was raped by another young man. And I remember the next day how I felt and how dirty I felt, and I walked around feeling just disgusting. And I remember I had a white towel, a little white face towel that I put over my head because I was, and my therapist helped me realize what my attachment to this white towel was all these years, and I had no idea, because it served as somewhat of a shelter for me. But I say all this to say that in that moment, I didn't feel protected because my mom was here in the States, and being from the culture that I'm from, I felt like it was harder for me as a little boy to say, hey, I got raped by another man, right? But it was hard. So I carried that around and I never told a soul. And my mother passed away, my grandmother passed away, and I never told them. I just told my sisters last year what happened to me. They had no idea. The first person that I told was the woman I was going to be married to. She was the first person I told, and I got married at 21. So imagine, but the age of 14, that happening to me, the age of 21, there was like a 7-8 year difference, right, in between when that happened to when I'm about to like walk into a thing called marriage, right, having no clue what I'm doing. So now I brought all of this stuff, all of this baggage, all of this hurt, I brought it right into that marriage with me, right, and it created an entirely different thing, right? But not to get too caught up in the weeds of that, just to kind of like encourage you, Antoine, like have that conversation, because I wish I had the chance to share that with my mom. And I knew one of the reasons why I held it back from her, because I felt like it would have broken her heart, because her only boy, her only son went through that. And I felt like it would have probably crushed her, because she would have probably felt like it was maybe partly her fault, because I was put in this place and she wasn't there to protect me, because my mom was always a protective person when it came to her kids. So take that chance and take that time to really share that with your mom, because I feel like it's important. It's definitely important in the healing process for her to know exactly what happened. So,
Wow.
Just wanted to share that. Yeah.
Matt, you wanted to say something?
I have a lot to say, but I'm trying to pick which one to choose. Like the therapist in me right now is just screaming.
Yeah.
So
We just want you to be Mac. We want you to be Mac the man tonight, because we want
Gotcha.
people to understand that there is a man inside of the therapist,
Of
and
course.
who gives the therapist therapy, and where do you unload on the things that you've endured as a boy?
That is great. I have a therapist by myself, and my wife has created a safe space for me where I can be honest at all times. To Antoine, I would say prior to you having the conversation, just make sure that you have the language ready so that you can explain it to her in a manner that she is going to understand. And do not take it personal if at first she doesn't agree with you or etc. Just give her some time to process. My final point is the common denominator to all of our stories and experience is the fact that the Black family was created to fail from the get-go. Historically speaking, the Black man has been strategically removed from the Black woman, from the Black community for this exact purpose, is to ensure that the Black community loses its foundation, its protector, its breadwinner, its whatever term that you could think of, from slavery to Jim Crow to mass incarceration to now being killed by police on a daily basis. So us Black men, we are marked. The higher powers, our oppressors do not want us to be aligned with our Black queen and creating Black families and just Black excellence and Black community. So this is a direct result of all of that, which is why we have to try harder and be more strategic when we're getting into relationships and ensuring that we have the skill sets, the knowledge, and the techniques needed to continue this Black love, to produce a generation that hopefully will not have to experience the degree of trauma that we've experienced ourselves.
Wow, that was powerful. I just want people to understand how serious this is, that we're not just here for a hoo-ha and to get people all up in arms to hear some juicy stuff. That behind the scenes, we just had a real conversation and a breather. And I just want anybody who's listening, if there are triggers, and when we talk about abuse, when we talk about sexual abuse, when we talk about these things, there can be triggers. And if you are feeling triggered and this is too much for you, we do not mind if you log off. And please, if you feel triggered and this moved you to get the help that you need from them being so transparent, I would just love for every person on here to understand that truth plus transparency equals healing. And we are here for the men tonight so that we could share that there's a little boy inside of every man that has not been healed. And unhealed little boys become unhealed men. And we don't want our men walking around feeling broken and embarrassed for things that happened to them that was not their fault. Let's make that clear. What Andre's been through and what Antoine has been through is not their fault. And we are clear here on only share what you feel compelled to share. This is a safe space. And if you don't feel like sharing and you want to stop, that's fine too. So we're going to move forward on to another question. So let's talk about, did anyone ever give you just the talk? Because we're talking about, young boys being violated and it being a brownie point. And still to this day, our young boys are being taught that sex is normal, cheating is normal, and all of these things. Was there anyone, and we can start with Josh or Max, since we haven't heard from you guys much. Was there anyone that actually gave you a talk to say, like we tell our young girls, your body is a temple, your body is precious, everybody shouldn't be touching you? Was there anybody in your space that said you are precious and you are special and everybody should not be touching you?
Absolutely. My parents gave me that conversation very much so, in that your body is yours. You have autonomy over it. Well, they didn't use the word autonomy, but you have agency and ownership over your body. And the one thing that was very, very helpful is that we did not use euphemisms for our sexual organs, right? We said, right. This is a penis, a vagina, testes, what have you. So we can name, if something did happen, we can have that kind of language, say, no, this is what happened, this is where it took place. And that was with the intention as to where they wanted to go with me in regards to giving me that conversation around not only sexuality, but also bodily autonomy too.
Oh my goodness, I love that. So again, every time I hear something, a point being made, I just want people to get the meat instead of the bones, that use penis, use vagina, use words where your children can come and articulate to you if somebody has done something to them. We use all these beautiful words like, that's your flower. No, we need to use the thing that it is so that we can have a safe space for our children to come to us and say, somebody touched my penis. And this is not to say that anything against anybody's parents about not having to talk, because I know coming from a single parent home, living with my mom, and then later on living with my stepdad, there was no talk for me. So what was dysfunctional was normal for me because I did not have this talk. So Mac, did anybody have the talk with you?
So I'm kind of envious of Josh, and I wish that was the norm. But if I had to bet, I would say for men in general, that is not the norm. To me, I feel that social conditioning has always been that men are judged based on their sexual conquest, as how many women can you sleep with, how often can you have sex. Like, it's a badge of honor. Like, if I'm thinking back to high school, like, my friends will walk up to me, yo, I just had sex, and it was like, yo, great job, and etc. Now looking back, I wish that my community did a better job of educating me, as opposed to me going out there and receiving my education from those that I would say currently are not as qualified as they should be. And me being a parent nowadays, I definitely plan on doing a sexual education. When I talk to my younger cousins, sit them down, ask them, are you having sex? Are you being protected? How are you treating her? Did she verbally say yes? Or, just talking them through to all of the legalities, and also helping them understand the significance of a sexual act. So no, I never had that education, but the streets did definitely taught me a few things.
All right. So I just want to take that question around the room. Mark, did anybody ever tell you what was normal for when a boy is really supposed to have sex and what that comes along with, and protect your body, and your body is a temple?
My mom, to be honest with you guys, my mom was so busy trying to provide for our family. Single parent mom, 8 kids, 6 of her own. She was too busy for that. But I was swift. I learned quickly, like growing up. And so I made connections myself as to that. And yeah.
Right. So we think we're swift and we're quick until we're not swift and we're not quick anymore. So I'm not a man, but I thought I was a man, and that's why I went out and did the things that I did, because I was emulating things and figuring it out and all of this other stuff inside of my crazy little head, because I grew up in a dysfunctional environment. So dysfunction was normal to me. And Antoine, you can speak on that. Is there levels of dysfunction that were normal to you?
It's so many, like, it's not even funny, but so many things, like I know a lot of people who create content, right, as far as video and stuff, and they be like, I don't have anything to record. And I was like, the stuff that you go through every day, the stuff that you see in your neighborhood every day, you think is normal, but it's not normal to the rest of the world. This stuff is amazing, like going on. This is like movie material, but you don't realize it because you're in it. Like how deep things is. But I can't say, like, it was just, I came up in, I don't know if you can see it regular. I came up in an urban environment, outside my door, in some locations where I was living at. Sometimes it was people selling a lot of drugs, it was a lot of violence and shots. And so me to not hear gunshots and ambulance at night wasn't normal when I moved to South Jersey.
Wow.
You get what I'm saying? So that wasn't normal to me. So like me actually hearing the birds chirp, that wasn't normal to me. So it's a lot of stuff that after like, and for people growing up that find themselves in survival mode, Like I said, I do reentry. I deal with people coming home who is like, yo, find a job so you could pay child support. But tonight it's snowing. They don't have a place to sleep tonight. So I got to figure that out first. Like where they going to sleep tonight before I can figure out a job application or how they going to get their ID. We got to figure out where they going to sleep at tonight. So like
right.
For a person, once they get out of survival mode, then they can start to think logically. And you can see like, wow, that really didn't make sense. But I was just trying to eat tonight. So that's why like, it's situations where it's a lot.
Right. That's really deep, and that's a good point, that when you are in survival mode, that is just what you are in. You are in the mode to survive, to get from where I am right now to where I need to be to stay alive tomorrow. So a lot of people don't understand, as I grew up in an urban community too, that for us, dysfunction is normal. So the things that we're talking about right now, and we are exposing things that need to be exposed. So our youth doesn't think that somebody, a young boy having sex at a certain age is normal, or your mother's boyfriend beating up your mother is normal, because these are the things that are going on in our houses. So we have stepfathers and we have mothers who have boyfriends who come in and they have power over your sons to beat them or to discipline them. You don't have that right. So for mothers who are listening, I just want you to understand, we have to be very, very careful with our sons, because they're growing up to be men and they have these things inside of them, which holds them back from being all that they could be. So Mr. Toby?
Well, gentlemen, based on the wonderful stories of the different things you've been through, some of you are parents or plan to be parents. So I'm going to start with you, Mark. Based on your recognized trauma, based on the things you went through that are right and not right, what do you plan to do differently? Or what are you doing differently with your children so that we can break that curse and have it be better for the next generation in your household, Mark?
I have two daughters. One is 22 and one is 17. And I have to tell you, the communication lines are open. We communicate. I let them know, if you feel uncomfortable with the situation, come to me. And what I try to do with them is I take them out separately where I can have one-on-ones with them, daddy-daughter days, to create that connection, that bond. And, you know, I try to be the example of what a good boyfriend or husband should be. You know, I listen to them, I give them encouragement, I support like the various things that they participate in. One loves social media, the other one loves basketball. So we'll go to a Nets game before the pandemic and we have our little daddy-daughter fun time. I take them out to eat separately and sometimes together with my wife. So we try best to show them what a healthy family is, stemming from my wife to myself. And it's been working, you know, giving them the encouragement, supporting their dreams. One is about to graduate from North Carolina A&T this May with her bachelor's.
Congratulations.
The other one is transitioning into college. She just got accepted by 2. We're waiting for some other ones. And, you know, my wife, she's graduating with her doctorate degree in a couple of months. So I want to tell you, and I want to share with the entire group, and this is key. If you know you've gone through trauma, you know you've been hurt, get the professional help that you need. If you want to create a healthy family for yourself. And I know for a fact, if I didn't have the courage to say, I'm hurt, I've been hurt, I need to fix this situation, and spent the money, took the medical benefits and went to the counseling for 15 weeks. Because if you don't do that, you're going to keep repeating that dysfunctional cycle in your family. And then think about it. If you're hurt up, you're going to hurt your wife, and then your daughters, your sons are going to repeat the same cycle that you went through. So you have to have the courage to say, I'm hurt, I need help, I got to get some professional help. And I think if you do that, I've been married, I'm proud to tell you guys, 19 years, January 26th.
Happy anniversary.
And I know for a fact, if I didn't have the courage to step up and get the help and, you know, find a support system, I would say too, to women as well as men, find a support system where you learn how to respect yourself more, right? You learn how to say to yourself, hey, I've been hurt, but it wasn't my fault. Because I think sometimes as men, we blame ourselves so much that, we don't really value like who we are and who we could become if we went through the healing process. So I'm just happy that, I made the decision. And something else that has helped me too, I've found faith. I found faith in my church has been a support system to me. And I'm in a happy place right now, guys.
And that's
my family's doing well. I see growth. And I don't want to repeat the same cycles that I went through as a kid. We want to be healthy, joyful, happy families. We deserve that. So
yes,
you're on this call, I want to tell you, if you've gone through any abuse or anything, you deserve happiness. You deserve joy. You deserve peace within yourself.
Thank you Mark.
So
Greatly appreciate you, man. So Matt, from your perspective, and I think you're a father or a parent as well, and a professional, what do you plan to do to break the cycle? What have you done when it comes to trauma based on your own experiences, sir?
Again, that's a powerful question. So I currently have a 10-month-old beautiful girl that is turning my world upside down. I was not prepared. I thought I was prepared. I read all the books you could think of. I joined all of the apps. I talked to all of the parents that you could think of. And this little girl is just the most amazing thing that ever happened to me on earth. Personally, I would say me being a therapist, I feel like has given me an advantage. Like I've been able to restructure her environment, those closest to her. Like I would say on average, like my family will call me if they're having any type of issues. I would say 70% of us currently are engaged in therapy. I found them therapists, or they'll just come and talk to me. I've held couple sessions for some of my close units just to help them through a rough patch. So I would say that I am more conscious of the things that I don't want her exposed to. I am more conscious of her security threats. Also, in my 9-to-5, I'm the supervisor of a trauma-based program that work with kids from 0 to 5 years old, right? So I'm getting a hands-on experience to see all of the trauma that children are experiencing and are just seeing. And most of it comes from dysfunctional relationships.
That's right.
So me being a couples therapist, I've invested a lot into my relationship to ensure that we can be the best partner to each other, but also the best parents to one another. I find that a common denominator in all of our stories is that our parents were not aligned or seeing eye to eye or on the same page. And me and my wife, we go through this together. We have a unified voice. And when we need to step into the therapist's office, we schedule sessions. We have our support system and we do the work. So hopefully I am praying that she never experiences none of the things that I myself or others have experienced, God willing.
Awesome, man. That's awesome, man. Josh, coach extraordinaire. How do you plan to take your experiences and your expertise for your children or the next generation within your family and help, my good brother?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure I'm the youngest one on here. I don't have any kids, but also understanding that there are a lot of I have nieces, I have nephews, I have students that I work with, I have young people that are around me that are looking to model behavior, and being very responsible and being intentional in that regard is to first admit to them, like, look, you may see this, you may see Unc, you may see Josh, you may see Mr. O doing these different things, but I by no means have it all together. And that's something that I'm trying to be very intentional about. I have my days, right? And I think that's a part of not just Black people, right? We talk about the Black family, we talk about all these different things. Black folks, we have had to endure and carry a lot. We've had to make sure that we can withstand, take the licking and keep on ticking, to use an old phrase, but we've had to endure a lot, and we do not always have the proper outlets to do so because there is a dearth of Black therapists in the field. there's still a stigma around Black folks going to see someone in regards to our mental health. And so these resources are not always available or accessible to us to really talk about what we need in regards to our own mental health and our own behavioral health and our own emotional well-being. So the first thing I'm doing is saying, you know, and putting it in language in which they understand, hey, you know, your dad, your uncle, your teacher, I have struggled with depression before. I have attempted suicide. And mind you, making it age appropriate so they can understand what that means, but being very intentional, because that was something, and I'm listening to this, and I'm also realizing that I was very fortunate as a child in that my parents didn't, and even my community, right? My family, my extended family, they didn't throw me to the wolves per se, but they allowed me to see things with those protections and with those barriers to say, no, like, you know, your uncle has a diagnosable mental health disorder, your cousin is going through this, and not trying to hide it from me because I was going to find out one way or the other, but I wanted to find out with family about my family from other members of the family who can talk to me about these things and walk me through them and provide some support if I had questions. So being very intentional about having conversations, using direct language, and also ensuring that they understand that if something is going wrong, if something goes by the wayside, that's, I mean, I'm sure y'all can attest to that. If you have an expectation of what you want your kid to be, you probably shouldn't be having kids, because there's no guarantee that your child is going to turn out any way that you plan or want them to be. And that's a risk you should take. If you are prepared to take that risk, you probably should think twice about having kids. That's just my perspective. I ain't got no kids. That's just from me coming from a 25-year-old perspective, but also understanding that the need for, and the last, I'll wrap up with this, a lot of times what I really needed when I was growing up, it wasn't anything grandiose. It wasn't anything that was super clinical. It was just somebody to say, look, you're scared, I'm scared too. We're gonna work through this together. I got you, Unc got you. You know, my parents had me, my teachers had me. And thankfully, no one interfered with that as a child in any way, shape, or form. But as I'm realizing it, that's really all that I needed when I was younger, to say, look, I know that this is scary and we're gonna get through this together. And I may not have the answers right now, but I'm gonna do everything in my power to get you what you need. And I'll speak from my experience, that was the determining factor to where I placed my trust in adults, those who were able to have that kind of conversation with me, and those who tried to push me away from that or shy it away or turn me away from that. And those are the people where I develop a deep distrust for, because if you can't talk to me about this, I know you're not talking to a therapist about this.
Right.
Fact. That's a fact.
Wow.
Andre, Antoine, we have about 3 or 4 minutes left. So I'm going to have you guys close it out before I have my favorite hostess do it. So Andre, very briefly, just kind of tell us, what are you going to do differently for your children now that you know about trauma and the things you've been through, sir?
So being the father of 6-year-old twin girls, they're going to be 7 in a couple of weeks. I'll say this. I wish if I knew then what I know now, I probably would not have gotten married. And that's not to say that because I'm happy that my girls are here. And I talked about this with their mother. I believe God chose us to be their parents. But if I knew then what I know now, I would have taken the time to heal. I would have taken the time to get myself together. And thankfully, I've been in therapy going on about 1.5 years now. I've been in therapy, and it's helped me to really come to grips with a lot of things and unearth a lot of things and heal from a lot of things. And that healing is ongoing, right? Because healing is messy. It's messy. It's not a one call close. It's going to take some time. And so I love my daughters, and as much as me and their mother are not together anymore, I still know that I have a responsibility to, number one, to continue to heal and to do the best that I can. And I know there's still room for improvement. There's still room for growth, and there's still room for me to do more and to be present in their lives and to create that safe space for them as little girls that they can talk to either me or their mother. And one thing I'm also thankful for is that they have the best mother in the world. She is absolutely incredible. And that's one, I will always sing her praises where that's concerned. My girls are lucky. They are blessed to have such an amazing mom. So for me, it's just to continue the healing process, continue to to be accountable and hold myself accountable for the things that I do and say wrong, the things that I've done and said wrong. Because a lot of times we get so caught up in pointing fingers and blaming, but also understanding that I have a responsibility because I can't look for healing at the place that broke me. It's my responsibility to heal. I have to heal. I have to do it. And whatever work that it comes with, whatever sacrifices that is going to take, I have to indulge in that, and I have to get it done for the sake of my children.
Thank you so much, brother. Antoine, we got 60 seconds for you to give us the last answer. What are you going to do differently, sir?
So what I've been doing differently, I have 3 of my kids are adults, so they're already out in the world. I just, me being in a situation where I come from, the environment and a lot of the stuff that I've been through, I've been a very protective father, especially with my oldest daughter. I feel like I went the wrong way. I was too protective with my oldest daughter, my first daughter, and I learned with my second and third daughter, and I apologize to my oldest daughter for being so tough and so strict, because it was my first time being a father. So I didn't really have, I didn't see fatherhood in the light that I feel like it's supposed to be, the path that it's supposed to be in. So with my daughters now, like, my 3 adult daughters, they're doing very well. The stuff that even my 13-year-old daughters, the stuff that they're doing now, I didn't do until I was in adulthood, like owning businesses at 10 years old, like just the path that they're on, and they have a plethora of a village of people around them that love them and protect them, and they have an open platform to speak whenever they need to speak. Communication.
So I'm going to have our hostess with the mostest close out. But what I want to say very briefly, gentlemen, is how much I appreciate you agreeing to be here, telling your stories. As I said before, Mac and Josh, don't be a stranger. Please stay in contact. Let us know how we can support you as well. You've been a blessing. My man, Mark, you're amazing. Andre, you know how I feel about you. And Antoine, thank you. So now I want to turn over to the amazing co-host who led the way. Go ahead, Ms. K, do your thing.
I just want to say thank you to this amazing panel of powerful, successful Black men who came on here and showed us that what they're putting out in the media is not at all what is behind the curtain. We have all been through some things, and our Black men deserve the same grace and mercy as everybody else. First of all, they are human first. They are human beings first, and then they are men. So we have to learn that as a society to give them what it is that they need as humans, and then to expect things from them as healthy males. So I would like to thank everybody for tuning into the Little Boy Inside, brought to you by Breakfast with Our Boys and Men Hurt Too. And I would hope that we could have this panel again to further carry this conversation that is so necessary. Maybe we can do it once a month or once a quarter, because these are the conversations that we need to have healthy homes, healthy hearts, and healthy communities, because we are suffering as a people because they are trying to hold our Black men down, and I refuse to allow that. And I just thank you guys again for being here, and we will see you at the top. So peace and blessings to everybody. If you have any questions, let me just go around the room really quickly, and everybody just tell, we'll start with Andre. Please tell everybody where they can find you if you would like to share that information, and we'll go around the room.
So I'm a lot on Instagram. So just Mr. Andre T. That's MRANDRET on Instagram, and yeah, from there you'll find me everywhere else. So, but that's kind of like where I am a lot in terms of social media. So yeah.
Antoine.
So you can find me on Facebook at Antoine Nelson. You can find me on Instagram, Antoine the Influencer. You can check out my website, AntoineNelson.com. I'm a youth mentor and I coach adults.
Mark?
You can find me on Instagram at I Dare You to Dream. You can find me on Facebook at Mark Thompson, or you can find me on LinkedIn at Mark, Director of Business Development, Mark Thompson.
Mac?
My website is therapyisforeveryone.org, and you can find me on Instagram as Talk2Mac, the number 2 _ therapist.
Thank you so much. And Josh?
Y'all can find me on Instagram at Healing Wild Black.
And Mr. Toby, we cannot leave you out.
Well, the easiest place to find me is the word breakfast with our boys series, because you can't forget about food. So I know you won't forget about breakfast, even if you don't remember my name.
Right.
Thank you so much, guys. You can find me at Trey Kearney on all social media platforms at TRAYKEARNEY. And let's not ever forget that Black men are dope, and they need our support, and they need our compassion, and they need our empathy, and they need to be healed. So we thank you for being with us tonight, and we would love to see you again on our next panel. Peace and
Thank you,
blessings. Thank you,
gentlemen.
fellas.
Thank you for having
You
me.
guys
Thank
are
you.
awesome.
Take it easy, everyone.
Appreciate you so much.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye. Thank you.